for EET, bar number 114859. Ms. Brophy is present, and this is day 7 of trial.
All right, Ms. Herman.
Good morning, Your Honor. Also for the state, Nicole Herman, HERMANN, bar number 126353.
Good morning, Your Honor. Madeline Loeb, also on behalf of the state, spelled L-O-E-B, bar number 173970.
All right, Ms. Weinmiller.
Good morning, Your Honor. Chris Weinmiller with Ms. Brophy. Weinmiller is W-I-N-E-M-I-L-L-E-R. My bar number is 863177.
All right, and Ms. Maxfield.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor. Lisa Maxfield here with Ms. Brophy. My bar number is 844337. My last name is spelled M-A-X-F-I-E-L.
All right, before we bring the jury back in, yesterday at the conclusion of the day, there was a question. I think defense wanted to evaluate whether or not they were going to object to the state's offered exhibit of 20B, and I got the impression defense just wanted to have a chance to look through it and decide. So I'll ask where we are on that.
Your Honor, we did review it last evening, and we do object to it if it's the exhibit, and I'm sorry I didn't write down the number, but I believe it's the exhibit that has some animation added to it. The animation fills in some gaps in the evidence and isn't consistent with the evidence that the state can actually present, so we do object to that exhibit.
That's not accurate.
Let's make sure we are talking about the same thing. So did I have the number right? Was it 20B?
20B is state's exhibit, the time-stamped legend created by Detective Merrill and Kelsey Way.
All right, so I had the wrong one.
We're not objecting to that.
Okay, so maybe you can remind me what the exhibit was.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. I think we're talking about 19. That's a video compilation that we gave defense a couple of years ago for the that was played in the bail hearing, and it's essentially the same as 20A with maps added in between some of the clips.
All right, so is that the one we're talking about? I just want to make sure we're first talking about the same thing.
That was the one that they did their objection to yesterday.
I know, but I'm not certain that's the one they reviewed last night. And maybe they're not either. So
exactly right, Judge.
we can come back to that. I just want to make sure we don't lose track of it. So why don't we plan on bringing up that exhibit and dealing with it right after the lunch break, unless that throws the state's case off and it needs to be addressed earlier. I don't know.
Well, I think the only reason that would throw it off is if it required more testimony from Kelsey Way. If it's something that could be answered with a simple question. In addition to that, and I think what kind of, there's some interplay here is what the state is going to also be moving to admit State's Exhibit 21, which I believe that's the one that defense counsel is referring to, where there's an animation that is done by Kelsey Way, in addition to some video. And that's what she'll be testifying to this morning. That's the only thing we didn't get to last night. And it sounds like maybe that's what we're objecting to and not 19.
Okay, so let's talk then about 21 for just a minute. Obviously, we haven't heard, I don't think, Ms. Guay's testimony yet about Exhibit 21. I just want to ask the sides if the nature of the objection is such that this is better addressed outside the presence of the jury, with Ms. Guay giving a proffer as to what she'll say about the exhibit, or not. I understand, I'm speaking in the dark here. I don't know what 21 is. I don't know what it shows. So I'm asking, I guess, defense, how they'd like to approach the objection on the exhibit.
Your Honor, I think that is the appropriate way to do it. We did review it last night, and it does include information that I think Ms. Guay cannot establish on her own, and there is no independent evidence that supports the animation. It may be consistent with known facts, but the animation adds facts that are not known and cannot be separately presented.
All right, so why don't we have Ms. Guay retake the stand, and we'll go through the exhibit. And Ms. Guay, since you were the last person on the stand yesterday, you don't need to be sworn again. You're still under oath. So you can have a seat and remove your mask and pour water if you want it.
I don't think we need to do 19, but I think 20, if we're, yeah, 21.
Just 21.
All right, so, Mr. Overstreet, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Sorry for the delay.
That's okay. I know you're trying to figure out what,
So, Ms. Gui, we're going to turn your attention to what's marked as State's Exhibit 21. And we're going to put it up on the screen here briefly, and I want to see if you can identify this video as one that you had also made in addition to the other ones. So, just from looking at this, is it stopped?
It is.
Pause. Does this look like a video clip that you created that's inserted into over a map?
Yeah, so this is the same video clip that was provided to me by Detective Merrill. And all I did was, this is PowerPoint essentially, and there is a capability to put video on top of an image in PowerPoint. And so that's that original video that was given to me by Detective Merrill, and it's just overlaid on top of a image of a map.
Okay. Was there any other editing done to the video part of this?
I did not edit the video.
Okay.
Other than timestamp, you clip and just take the time that you want. I did not enhance or add anything to the video.
Okay, so you just took that same video, inset it into this PowerPoint.
Correct.
And then that blue arrow, what is that indicating?
So that was to show kind of the general direction of what the video, where the video is looking towards. So this is the Goose Hollow platform Westband camera, and it's, as we discussed yesterday, directed east towards Jefferson.
Okay. And we'll go ahead and play it, and then we'll ask what you did. Why don't we go ahead and pause right there? So on there, it looks like, did you zoom in on that video?
So what I did is, on my computer screen, I have a tool called Snagit, which is just a screen recorder. And all it is you draw a rectangle over the area of your screen that you would like to record, and then you push play on the media that you're going to record, and then whatever's inside that rectangle, it captures that. And so what I did is I opened up the video file that was given to me by Detective Merrill. Because there was so much going on, right? In that first image that we saw, that you see the tracks, you see the road, there's a lot of other things that are moving and can draw the eye. So the point of this clip was to really focus our attention at looking at down Jefferson. So all I put for the Snagit was over the top of that video frame. And so once I had established, okay, this appears to be the area that we want to keep our eyes focused on, I hit play, and the program started recording. So all it did was taking a recording of a recording, essentially. And then I took that file, saved it, and inserted it into PowerPoint as this video overlay.
Okay, so to kind of put a little bit more in layman's terms, and I think I understand, but is there zooming in that's occurring, or are you just focusing on a certain area and capturing that?
So I open the original video on my computer screen, draw a rectangle over what we're seeing right now, and pushing record, and then taking that video file and inserting it into PowerPoint.
Okay.
So it looks like, based on the scale on this, because it's a little different than obviously my computer screen, it does look a little bit elongated, like a rectangle, I guess.
Okay. And I just want to be clear on the point, though, you're not zooming in, you're just screen grabbing a particular portion of the screen.
Correct.
And then inserting it.
Correct.
You're not.
I don't have any technology on my computer that would allow me to zoom into that image. That's all I did was open the video, draw a rectangle, and hit play.
Okay. And then on the map, there's two animated vehicles. Could you describe what you were doing when you created those?
Yeah, so this is in PowerPoint. So now focusing onto that map, which is just a slide in PowerPoint. And in high school, I learned how to do kind of animations in PowerPoint. It was a fun class that you took in high school. And so one of the things, capabilities in PowerPoint is to draw a line and have an object follow that path. And so that's exactly what I did. Those cars are just little icons, little images, and there is a setting that you can do where you can say, okay, I want, on a click or at this timestamp, I want this object to move in this direction. And so it's all just PowerPoint.
Okay. And so that darker vehicle, I can't tell if it's dark gray or black from here, but that darker vehicle, what is that to indicate?
So it was trying to show the video in a more of a 2D view, because the video again it's a small area that we can see, and it's kind of hard to see something moving toward you when you're looking straight on at it. So we discussed another way to visualize this exact same thing that we're seeing on the camera from a 2D view. And so the car that we see with the headlights in the video is traveling down Jefferson and then stops at that stoplight.
Okay. And is that a vehicle that you've identified or know anything about, or is that just another vehicle in the area?
To my knowledge, it's just another vehicle in the area. I don't know anything about that vehicle.
Okay. So you just added that because you see it in the camera
Correct.
view? Okay. And then, so the red vehicle, what is that vehicle supposed to replicate?
So that vehicle is supposed to represent the subject van that we had been following in all of the other footage.
Okay. And is it sort of the same idea that you are watching this video and then having that van move with the direction that you're seeing in the video?
Yes.
Okay. Could we go ahead and continue? Could we go ahead and pause it there? So it looks like we switched to a different camera angle.
Correct.
I think what we're becoming very familiar with is Bellagio's video. Was that inserted just to show a different angle?
Correct.
Okay, but the animation remaining the same, that it's to follow the vehicle that we're seeing in the video.
Correct.
Okay, could we continue? Okay, and is that the entire video that you created?
That's the entire video.
Or I guess PowerPoint with
Video.
instead of it. Okay. I don't think I have any other technical questions for you.
All right, so having seen that, let me, if defense can restate their objection.
Well, Your Honor, it's her interpretation in addition to the evidence. The video speaks for itself. The video actually depicts what occurred, and I don't think that it's helpful for her to then try to present it in a way that is not as accurate as the video, and potentially shows the vehicles resting in positions for longer periods of time than they actually rested. I mean, I just don't know how to term it better than to say the video is the evidence, and then we should stay with the evidence. Now, if he wants to do something demonstrative in his closing that's a little bit more interpretive, that's fine, but I think that there is an argumentative element to this reinterpretation of the video that's not appropriate for what is, purported to be essentially scientific testimony.
All right, well, I'll allow the evidence in. Defense can cross-examine on any perceived discrepancies between the video and the diagram, but I will allow the evidence in. Then with regard to Exhibit 19, just to make sure I'm clear on this, because I saw that the two of you were speaking. I don't know, we can still wait on 19, but I wasn't sure if based on your conversation, does defense still want to wait on 19?
We agreed that we would look at that. We had looked at 21 rather than 19 last night, and so we'll look at 19 over the noon hour.
Sure.
And Your Honor, I just in case the court wasn't oriented to exactly what was happening there, the specific reason we're objecting is that it appears that that red car is actually parked right out in front of OCI at a critical time. So it is a reinterpretation or an addition to what is actually present on the video that we think is particularly problematic.
Say that again. You say when you're talking about the red car, you're now talking about the one on the map.
The animation that we just watched shows the car that is purported to be Ms. Brophy's car and treats it as if it is parked in front of OCI at a very critical point in time. And we believe that only the video should be used to try to depict that.
Okay. Say, want to respond?
Yeah, Your Honor, I think we certainly don't want to mislead the jury to say that that was parked there. I can deal with that on direct, and I think she can be crossed as well, that it's really just a starting point for the video, that we're not indicating that that vehicle is actually parked, but that it did come off of 17th onto Jefferson, as you can barely see in the top of the video. But we're not going to argue or suggest that she was parked in front of the OCI at the moment this video starts.
Well, I will ask you to be clear about that during direct, and defense can also cross-examine on that point.
That makes sense.
Their entire case, though, Your Honor, excuse me, their entire case, I think, rests on the argument. It's implicit in their argument that she did park there. So I don't.
Not true.
I think the sides may have a different view as to what the state's theory is. You know, in my mind, when I see this map, it's not to me tremendously different than having a witness draw something on paper where it may not have things exactly where they were located, and they can be cross-examined about the accuracy of their diagram. I just don't see it as particularly different. So I am going to allow it. 19 is not admitted. That still needs to be discussed. But I will allow admission of 21. And then let's go ahead and get the jury.
Okay, I will go ahead and turn off the record, Judge. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go off record. I'll mute us for WebEx and I'll get the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor. 21. All right, Ms. Gway, where we left off yesterday was we were talking about the video compilations that you had put together. I want to talk to you about this final one. First of all, can you just describe what your thought process was here in creating this video inset over a map and kind of what you were doing?
Yeah, so as we watched, I guess yesterday, the longer video footage, it's a really, I guess, wide angle of this video footage from the Goose Hollow platform westbound camera, which is facing eastward down Jefferson. And so the point of interest where we really cared about focusing people's eyes was at the top of the screen. But as you can see, there's a lot going on. And so the idea was to really create something that would direct people to focus on what we saw was very important. And this graphic was created to create not only the oncoming view, what we see in the camera, but also a 2D view so that you could kind of see things from more of like a bird's eye to just help reference people.
Okay. And so starting with the inset video there that you have, what did you do to that video in order to, as you stated, draw the viewer's eye to the top of the screen?
Yeah, so this one is just a screen grab of that video footage that we had seen yesterday. And when I say screen grab, I have a software on my computer and it's called Snagit. And essentially what it is you draw, it's like very similar to Snipping Tool and other programs where you draw a rectangle over the area that you're concerned about. And you can either take a still image or you can take like a video recording, a screen recording. And so and this particular one is just the still image looking down eastbound towards Jefferson.
Okay. And that Snagit program, you said you described it as sort of like a cropping tool almost, where you just draw a box over the target area that you're looking for. When you're doing that, are you enhancing that image in any way or altering the image in any way?
When I use the tool, I open the video that I'm concerned with. In this case, the video footage from the Goose Hollow westbound platform. I open that footage that I was given by Detective Merrill. And in this case, we're really concerned more about that top of the screen. So I open the video to my full screen on my computer and I draw a rectangle around the top, which is where we wanted people to focus on. And anything that is happening in that little rectangle that's been drawn over gets recorded. And it's purely a recording. There is no enhancing, there's no, editing of any kind of thing other than, stop, start. That's it.
Okay. And could you explain the blue arrow that we see laid over the map there?
Yes, so this is just again, another screen grab of Google, and the map is showing that the video footage is looking from Goose Hollow, that TriMet platform, and Dan Jefferson.
East looking.
Yes, sorry, East Dan Jefferson, excuse me.
And it looks like you've put the letters OCI over on the map as well. Is that to indicate the Oregon Culinary Institute?
Correct, because it's no longer shows as OCI on Google Maps because there is a different business in that area now. So.
Okay. Can we go ahead and play? Okay. And if we could pause for a moment. Okay, and so now the video that we're looking at, is that the video that you're talking about that you took from that Snagit?
Correct,
And
yes.
just now you're inlaid that recording onto this map?
Yes, so it was that the footage was the Goose Hollow platform westbound looking east down Jefferson. And I opened that video up on my computer. I opened Snagit. I drew a rectangle, which we can see here. I pushed play on the video. It recorded. I pushed stop. It's finished recording. And then I saved that as a video file. And then I put that video file. This is all in PowerPoint. I know it's a video, so it's kind of weird, but this is all in PowerPoint. It's all happening in PowerPoint. And PowerPoint has a function where you can put a video in PowerPoint and have it play at click or at a certain time. And so that is what's happening, is that video, which is just the screen girding of that rectangle from the original footage put into PowerPoint.
And I see that on your map you have overlaid two animated what appear to be vehicles. Is that correct?
Correct, from like a bird's eye perspective.
And just to set up the video, what we're going to watch here in a moment, are those the only two vehicles that we see in this particular portion of the video?
Correct.
Okay. And could you briefly describe, there are obviously two different colors. We have one that's, I still can't tell, it's either dark gray or black, and then an animated vehicle that appears to be red. The dark blue or black, sorry, dark gray or black vehicle, what is that supposed to be?
So that is supposed to be a bird's eye view of the vehicle that we can currently see in frame with the headlights pointing at the cameras. And so when you're watching a video, it's sometimes hard to see stuff coming on at you and knowing that it's traveling. It's just, I mean, in this one, it comes down quite a bit further from the top of the frame, but that's what this bird's eye view is showing, is that it's driving down and you see the headlights come from the top of the frame and eventually stop at that traffic light.
And is that a vehicle of interest in this case, or is that just a vehicle that we happen to see in the video?
It's a vehicle that we happen to see in the video.
Okay. So not the Target minivan that we've been discussing.
Correct.
And that's a vehicle that has its headlights on that you can see in this video?
Yes.
Okay. And when we talk about the other vehicle, the minivan that we see in the video, does that not have its headlights on? Or can you tell?
I can't tell. By this screenshot, I can't tell.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're differentiating between the two vehicles, especially as they end up on the same road. So.
Okay.
But what you're saying is that dark-colored animated vehicle is currently represented in the frame of the video as the vehicle straight onto the camera with its headlights on.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about that red vehicle then that you have listed as, or just showing as red. Is that supposed to replicate the target vehicle, this minivan that we've been discussing?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to be clear, this sort of looks like the starting point of your analysis, your showing of the video, your showing where the vehicles are. Are you trying to indicate here that that red vehicle was actually parked there at that time?
No, as you can see in the video footage, you can't see the red vehicle. So it's out of frame. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's a starting point for things to come. It's not to indicate it's parked because I don't know where it is because I can't see it in the video.
Okay. So fair to say that that vehicle, in your opinion, is somewhere on that street 17th near OCI, but you're not necessarily saying it's parked. It could be moving at the time.
It could be moving.
It also could be parked, but just you don't know where.
I don't know where it is.
Okay. So just to be very clear, this is not to indicate that that van was necessarily parked in front of the Culinary Institute at that time.
No.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and play it? Why don't we actually back it up a little bit to before the vehicle turned off 17th. I want to ask you a couple questions about that.
Okay.
What are you seeing when you play this video that caused you to believe that that minivan was turning off of 17th from in front of the Culinary Institute onto Jefferson? What are you seeing in the video?
So after watching this video multiple times, and again, in that wide view, we were very focused on the car with the headlights, and we're like, oh, you can see that it appears to be coming down Jefferson because the headlights start at the top of the frame and eventually work their way down to where it's parked. After watching this many times, myself and Detective Merrill realized that you almost see at the very top a glint, like the sun is hitting something, and then you see the car full on. So after watching it many times, it appeared that as a vehicle is moving in what would that be? A south direction to make a turn onto Jefferson, that metal is being hit by the sun and it's glinting. And then we see the car pull up and stop at that stoplight. So to us, it looked like that vehicle was turning off of 17th and traveling, what would that be, westbound on Jefferson.
An abundance of clarity, was that, in your opinion, the same vehicle, that minivan you had been sort of following around that morning on different video?
After looking at it through the other video footage, like the Bellagios and everything else, it did appear to be the same subject vehicle.
Why don't we go ahead and play that all the way through? It's just another angle through the Bellagio's video,
Correct, it's
showing the same movement at the same time.
correct.
Was that the extent of that portion of the video that you analyzed
Yes,
and created that PowerPoint with the inset videos?
yes.
I don't believe I have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's start with that last video, since we just watched that. Would you agree that there is some supposition in your interpretation in the animation part of that?
Could you rephrase that? Sorry, I guess the supposition, I'm not totally clear what it is.
Well, in creating the animation, you did that all on your own, did you not?
Yes.
Did Detective Merrill work with you on that?
He worked with me on looking at the video multiple times, but then I created it in PowerPoint myself.
Okay. So in the video, you said that you had to look at it multiple times to figure out essentially where that band came from.
It dawned on us after watching it multiple times that we were seeing that glint at the top because, as I said earlier, there's so much going on in that wide screen view. Your eye is drawn a ton of different places, and after watching it, you realize, oh, I didn't notice that glint, and I'm gonna focus on that. And when you watch it a few times, noticing the glint, it became clear to us that something was hitting the sun and flashing, and then we saw the vehicle appear.
Okay, and as I understand your process, you were essentially working backward because in the Bellagio's video, you later see something that you believe is that band.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But when you're looking at this video from the TriMet platform, that's essentially a good block and a half down, looking down Jefferson to get to 17th, is it not?
If I had a map, I could reference.
If we pull up 21
Just the-
again, I think that your blue arrow shows that, right? Could we have just that initial frame of 21 up again, please? Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay.
Right. So can you use the pointer in front of you, that green handle?
Yeah.
Hey, could you point to the platform where that video is actually being taken?
So I didn't collect it, and I don't work for TriMet, so I don't know exactly where all the cameras are specifically positioned. But the platform itself is indicated kind of like right in this area where it has on Google, where it says the Goose Hollow.
Essentially where that blue dot is next to the Goose Hollow platform.
Yeah.
I can't even read the words, but I'm assuming that says Goose Hollow platform.
Yeah. Goose
Okay.
Hollow, Southwest Jefferson Street.
All right, and then in the animation where you had the two vehicles, that's down at the corner of 17th and Jefferson, correct?
Yes.
And can you just point to that intersection?
So that would be Jefferson and 17th.
Okay, so that does appear to be a good solid block and a half, does it not?
Yeah.
And then it's actually expanded by the width of that traffic circle.
Yes, yeah, there is some, I don't know the exact distance, but there's gonna be, some road.
Kind of a larger than normal intersection.
Yes, having driven through it is a very confusing intersection.
Okay, so, and I think that's enough. You can sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So when I was asking you about supposition. You're looking at this video that's looking about a block and a half down, and at some point you see the van as it approaches Bellagio's.
Yeah, you see the van drive by those windows, yes.
In the Bellagio's
In
video.
the Bellagio video, yes.
And so then you go back to the TriMet video and you're trying to look down 17th and figure out when you can first see it.
Correct.
Right. And you had to do that many times before you saw something that you thought was it.
Once we had identified the glint, we were realizing, oh, let's try to see what other footage is around that time. And yes, that's that van that we've been watching on other footage. And then we looked at that video, the Goose Hollow video, and we very tried to watch the difference between the two cars.
Okay.
So.
And you said that you had cropped out some of this from the original video, but is that point at 17th about the top of the frame of the original video from the Goose Hollow platform?
Yeah, if I can point, I know this is I guess it's a little bit bigger on that one, but it is the top of that. This is an image on an image, so it's a little bit smaller than what it looks like on our computer screens, but it is the top of that video.
All right, so talking now just about the TriMet video, from that platform, you really can't see much further down Jefferson.
No. Correct.
And you don't see the van pull out from 17th. What you're saying is you see glint, and you're inferring from the glint that there's something that's causing it. There's something reflective that's caused that.
Yes.
But there isn't really any way to know whether some other sort of angle, some other sort of turning into the sun could have caused a glint, right? I mean, in other words, it wouldn't have to be a right-hand turn that would cause a glint. There are a couple different ways that you could see a glint at that point in time, or at that point in space in the video.
I guess I'm just trying to think about your question. Just give me a second.
And it may be that this goes beyond your area of expertise. I realize that you're.
Yeah, like this is maybe physics. I'm not totally sure. But watching it and noticing the difference between the two vehicles traveling towards the camera, there did seem to be a pretty clear distinction that the car with the headlights, you saw the very bottom of the headlight appear and continued to get larger as it approached the angle of the camera. And then in the second vehicle instance, you see a glint in what appears to be some kind of movement, motion. And then again, you see the full vehicle in view. So to me, there was a difference between seeing the bottom of the headlight appear in the camera and get larger as it travels through the camera, and then seeing the glint, motion, and then the vehicle.
Okay. And in the animation, it seemed like the red car pulled out to the left and was traveling kind of parallel to the other. But in the video, it looked like the one that you've depicted as red, which we know is really silver, right? The kind of a silver gray color, that appears to be traveling behind the vehicle with the headlights initially, and then pull out parallel to it once it's much closer to that intersection at 18th.
I can see that they end up in different lanes. I can't say if that vehicle was trailing the one with the headlights the entire time because it's out of the camera's view, so I can't say where that vehicle, what lane it was in. I know that it ends up and they end up in separate lanes because you can see that in the video.
In the Bellagio's video, you can see
yes,
that.
yes, you can. Mm-hmm.
But it is in the TriMet video. I think the word you used was fuzzy, and I agree with you. It's pretty fuzzy. That vehicle behind is pretty hard to see at the beginning when it's closer to 17. Is it not? Distinct shape.
It doesn't have its headlights on, so I think that prevents it from being easily clear in the video as a car with the headlights.
And it's also partially hidden behind the vehicle that does have the headlights on.
I think that the car with the headlights on has come to rest by the time that we really see the other vehicle.
Meaning that they're already up at Bellagio's?
Yeah, and if I recall, it was either coming almost to a stop or at a stop when we see the other vehicle.
So just to be clear about this, even though in the animation, and I know you covered this with Mr. Overstreet, but even in the animation, you show it on 17th and you show it resting on 17th for a pretty good part of that animated segment of this exhibit. You in fact don't have video that shows it resting in that position for that length of time.
Correct.
And if you had video like that, you'd be showing the video to us and not the animation. Is that correct?
Yeah, the animation was more not to infer the starting point or the resting point of the van at that time, but to, with PowerPoint and the way that it's set up was, okay, we see this car move, and then, I mean, you know, magically this car would pop up and drive off. So it's, you know, inferred that it came from somewhere in that direction and ended up resting on Jefferson.
Stopped at 18th and Jefferson at the light there.
Yes,
in front of
yes,
Bellagio's.
yeah.
Okay. Sorry for talking over you. The court reporters are going to hate us. So the video, and then going back now to some things you were testifying about yesterday afternoon, could you tell us again what your position is called? Are you a technician?
My current position or my former?
Well, the one you were in 2018, I guess.
Yeah, so that one, the technical term in the city documents is an analyst two. It's a very broad class. It covers a lot of different people who work for the city of Portland. The work that I did was more investigative in nature, and I assisted sworn detectives on their cases in a variety of functions, including cell site, social media searching, analysis, patterns, trends, those kinds of things.
Okay, so you were an analyst too at the time, and now what are you?
Still an analyst too, doing a completely different job function, but still an analyst too.
Okay, so you're referred to as an analyst and not a technician.
Correct.
Right? Okay, sorry about that. So I take it, at least in this investigation, and I don't know whether this is the way it works with most detectives, but in this particular investigation, Detective Merrill went through the footage, the video himself. He brought you excerpts of the video, and then he asked you to work with it to make it a little bit easier to follow. Is that correct?
Yeah, he brought me the footage in its maybe I raw form, but they were just all the long MP4 files. And he had identified timestamps of the times of interest that showed the van, the subject van. And so we worked together, again, using Snagit, which is just that screen recorder, to overlay that over the entire video file for all of these different MP4s, and then play them all consecutively in a row and make one video file so that he didn't have to open like 20.
Right. Were you asked at some point to go through all of the raw video as well to do some of your own interpretation or analysis, or were you simply taking the timestamps that he directed you to?
I was taking the timestamps that he directed.
And at any point, were you analyzing the movements of vehicles other than this particular subject van that we're talking about now?
Other than looking at those, like the difference between the car with the headlights in and the subject without the headlights, I really didn't look at other cars very closely, no.
And do you remember what of the raw video that you were given? And I know it came from a number of sources. There were maybe 7 or 8 different video businesses or the churches or whatever that had video?
Yeah, there was a lot.
Do you remember what the time range was for each of them? And sort of the very earliest one and the very latest one. I'm not asking you to go through each of the 8 individually, but
I don't know because I didn't really watch all of them from start to finish for each one, because what was asked of me was, hey, here's these footages, you know, here's the name of the file that I care about, whether it's Goose Hollow platform westbound or Goose Hollow platform pedestrian crossing. And here's the timestamps for those videos that we care about. And so purely for this was more of an ease. It was not, I was not directed to do analysis on all the video footage. It was to just purely help kind of make this more manageable.
okay. All right, and you also referred to the timestamps there, and in one of the videos that we were looking at yesterday, either you or Mr. Overstreet indicated that that timestamp that was superimposed on it was actually placed there by Detective Merrill.
So with VLC, which is the video player file that I was using to open these files, there is an option to add subtitles. So you just create a text document, you put whatever the text is that you would like, and you upload that into VLC as a subtitle. And so that, I believe we're talking about the 11-minute one from the affinity management. Yeah. So Detective Merrill verbatim gave me like this phrase, and that's what we decided to go with as the subtitle. So I typed that as a text document and then brought that in as a subtitle to play over the video.
Okay, so you actually added the subtitle, but it was at his direction.
Yes.
He told you exactly what it should be.
Yes.
So did you do any independent analysis of the accurate timeframes, or were you taking all of that information from Detective Merrill?
I was taking it from Detective Merrill.
All right. Let's turn to the CSLI, the phone records information that you were talking about yesterday. I want to go over that again. Some of this might be a little redundant, but I think because it's really a new subject matter and kind of technical, it would probably be helpful to everybody if we did that. So you talk about using a software called GeoTime. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Is that what it's called? And GeoTime has essentially either worked with the different cell carriers or somehow figured out how to interpret the data that's coming from the cell carriers.
I mean, that's a question for GeoTime, but I believe that they have received documentation and then have written a program that will be able to interpret different types of documentation and then visualize it.
Okay, and there are basically 3 different carriers now.
Now, yeah, and I with the internet crimes against children work that I do occasionally do cell site stuff, but for most of what we do, we know where our people are located, so I don't do cell site as much. But it is my understanding that at some point after 2018, I believe Sprint was acquired by T-Mobile, so I think I'm not sure if it's fully merged yet, but there's probably 3 major ones now.
We're down to 3. Okay, and AT&T obviously is one of those 3. And the Brophy plan, both Nancy Brophy and Dan Brophy were on a common AT&T plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was what it looked like based on the subscriber records.
Okay. So does your interpretation about location, is that relying entirely on the AT&T records?
Interpretation of location of
their location. You were testifying yesterday afternoon, or yes, you were testifying yesterday afternoon about the morning of June 2nd and Mr. Brophy going to work that morning.
So again, with the phone records, I can only testify where the device is, not the person.
Right.
But yes, so the location of the devices, yes.
Right, and that what the software is interpreting are the records that come from AT&T, correct?
Correct.
And nothing else is being fed into that. What the software is looking at is just those AT&T records.
It's whatever I get from the investigator. I make sure it's the right file because sometimes they'll send me like a PDF and they can't ingest PDF, and AT&T always sends a PDF and a text file, and that text file is what I upload into the program. And I believe on this case I uploaded the AT&T file, which had both of their records, the call, SMS, data usage, and then the AT&T also had provided the NELOS file, and so I uploaded that one as well.
Okay, and you had made reference yesterday to a legal requirement. I think you referred to it as GPS assist.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what the NELOS file is and then contrast that to GPS assist so we understand what both of those are as it relates to these AT&T records that you're analyzing or looking at here?
Yeah, so again, the 911 assist is a requirement to telecom companies to be able to assist in law enforcement, fire, EMS to locate a person. And each company has their own way of doing that. And AT&T provides NELOS records, which again are not GPS. and they try to estimate the location of a device, and they do that using triangulation through multiple towers, and then they'll provide a latitude and longitude with a timestamp and a location accuracy measure, and that could be anywhere. I've seen them as good as 10 meters. It's not common at all, to up to 10,000 meters. So again, it can be a range.
Okay, so at least in the case of AT&T, are those one and the same? Does AT&T meet its GPS assist requirement by providing the NELOS records, or are those different things?
I believe when they're doing the E911, it's formatted slightly differently. I think they send it as a ping, like an email file. And then when those records are held in their servers, and if law enforcement asks for them, I believe they provide them in the NELOS format. But that would be a AT&T question, exactly what the difference is.
Okay, so you're not certain, but you think that they are at least similar.
I know the technology that's used to triangulate a phone, and it's using towers, but I can't speak to exactly what AT&T is doing in each of those circumstances.
Okay, all right. So with respect to Mr. Brophy, the morning that he died, going to work, could you remind us again what you were able to ascertain from the GeoTime program?
Yeah, and I went and double checked everything last night, and there were the data usages at his, for his cell phone number between, overnight, midnight through 6:43 a.m. It was all recorded at that cell site, kind of near their home location. And then at 7:30, so there's nothing between 6:43 a.m. There's no data usage, there's no text message, there's no phone calls. And then the next thing that we see from those records, AT&T records, is data usage records at 7:37 a.m. at the cell site that's near the Goose Hollow.
Okay, and I think you just used this term data session.
Data usage, yeah, yeah.
What is a data session?
So again, the AT&T, a data session can be multiple things. It can be network generated, or it can be user generated. And essentially, most people have a smartphone, and that's an internet-enabled device, which means it can access the internet. And you have Facebook, you have email, you have a host of applications on your phone, and anything. I mean, even iMessage and FaceTime are actually gone over internet connections and not traditional SMS or phone call. And so anytime you're doing something that's not a traditional SMS or traditional phone call, it has to go via data. And so that is what I mean by a data session. So it's network generated, user generated, but it's just the flow of a data from your phone to the network.
And does AT&T measure things in standard hour-long blocks of data sessions?
They have timestamps. I'm not sure if they're all on hour or if they can be shorter.
Okay. Do you have those records from Mr. Brophy's phone with you?
Not in front of me.
Okay. You looked at them again last night, though, after you testified?
I looked at the timestamps for his data usages. Yeah, the starting timestamps.
Okay. And for his phone, and we're talking now about the morning that he died, June 2nd, 2018. AT&T shows a data session that begins at 6:37.
6:43.
Oh, there are two. There's one that begins at 6:37, I believe, and
Oh,
there's
okay.
another one that begins at 6:43. And then each of those end 1 hour later. Is that correct?
If I had it in front of me, I could verify it.
From your review last evening, do you recall that what those records show is that he is still presumably at home, pinging off the tower that you associate with their residence in Beaverton?
Yeah, those had the lat long of that tower. Yes.
The ones near their house in Beaverton.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the very next thing that you see is at 7:37 in Goose Hollow, close to OCI, the tower that you would associate with OCI.
Correct.
Is that correct? And in fact, the AT&T records don't show actual movement between the two. They just show at home and then much later at work.
Yeah, so when I reviewed it, there was the one, that last one at 6:43. The very well could have been a one at 6:37. I didn't look to go before that. I just kind of looked for the last one. And then I saw there was a gap of roughly 45 minutes between the next data usage record.
Okay, and maybe I misinterpreted what you were saying yesterday, but I thought you were saying that you interpreted that to mean that he left home at 6:43 and weren't sure where he was in between those two.
No, I again, like, I can't infer where he is. His device had the record at 6:43 at that cell site, and then there's just nothing. So it's impossible to say where the device was until 7:37 was recorded down at the Goose Hollow area.
Okay, but there's nothing about that 6:43 activity that means he's on the move. It just means he's still at home.
Correct.
That's all it tells us.
Correct. In that general area, but yeah.
But he's in the vicinity of his home tower.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
Okay. And when you use this software, is it essentially taking that, the AT&T text information and interpreting it and then giving you an interface that tells you what it means, or is there a certain amount of work that you have to do with that raw data still to interpret it yourself?
It ingests it, I guess is a good way to say it. And then the way that the program functions is it will give you one of three different viewing. You can view the 2D face down. You can view it in kind of like a timeline feature if you wanted to scroll and look at activity over a month or a year, however much data you have, and you could kind of see everything in like a timeline calendar view. And then there's what they call a 3D view, but I don't really use that functionality very often because I find it kind of disorienting. But so you could just kind of switch between the 2D, the calendar view, and the 3D, and it's those records that have been visualized on a map. And so that's kind of your base format is just a map, and then it overlays the AT&T or Verizon data on top of that.
Okay, so the software has been designed essentially to do that interpretation. It'll present it to you one of three ways, but it's determined what it's going to present to you. You're not doing any further manipulation or.
No, I'm not. I think the only manipulation you would do is if for whatever reason you had records that were already put in PST, you would just check to make sure like your time setting is good. But most records are given to you in UTC, so then you just make sure you're in the correct time zone and everything works out well.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, redirect.
Yes, very briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Guay, I wanted to just follow up on something because I thought we covered it in pretty great detail yesterday, but I want to make sure there's no confusion today. That is that Dan's phone, the morning of June 2nd. Just want to make sure that it's very clear from you. Are you saying that data transmission at 6:43 that morning, that phone, that device is somewhere near their home or at their home?
It would have to be within the vicinity of that
Sure.
home tower, yeah.
And then when you see that second data transmission at 7:30 something that morning, that data transmission is occurring somewhere in the vicinity of the Oregon Culinary Institute on that particular tower.
Yeah, that tower appeared to provide coverage to the OCI.
But in between there, you're saying you can't tell us where he is based on the cell phone data.
Correct, there is no cell phone data for that period.
But you've also analyzed the video and seen what you've been told at least was Daniel Brophy's pickup truck coming into downtown towards the Oregon Culinary Institute about 7:19 a.m.
Yes.
And then just an abundance of caution, that final data transmission, once again, you're saying, is that produced by AT&T or is that user input, or I think you testified very clearly last year that you can't tell.
There's nothing in the records to indicate if it's network or user generated.
Okay, so if at 7:38 Dan had already been shot, that data transmission could still occur.
Yes.
Meaning if it was, say, a AT&T generated data transmission.
That could very well be it.
Right. Okay. I don't believe I have any further questions.
May this witness be excused.
She is actually scheduled to testify once more next week, so we would keep her under subpoena.
All right, then you can step down for now.
And Your Honor, I guess just in case there's any objections, it's unclear whether we actually asked to admit these exhibits, so I just want to be clear for the record. The state is moving to admit State's Exhibit 20B, which is the time log that was created by Ms. Guay and Detective Merrill, and that coincides with the video 20A.
Any objection to 20B?
No.
All right, 20B is admitted.
And the state would also move to admit State's Exhibit 21, which is the final video compilation 3 that we watched in court this morning.
Sure, and certainly subject to our earlier conversation, 21 is admitted.
Thank you. I believe that's all.
All right, who is the state's next witness?
The state will call Detective Darren Posey.
Okay. All right, Detective Posey, if you can come up to the witness box and go ahead and step into it, but remain standing, and my clerk will give you the oath.
Under the penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, then you may be seated. And you can go ahead and take off your mask. And then for the record, I'll just ask you to please state and spell your name, both first and last.
Darren Posey, Darren Posey.
All right, you can inquire.
Thank you, Judge. Detective Posey, where are you employed?
I work for Portland Police Bureau
And how long have you been in law enforcement?
for over 24 years.
Over 24 years?
Yes.
And you're currently assigned as a detective?
Yes, I am.
In which department or division?
I currently work in the Enhanced Community Safety Team.
Okay. And what kind of crimes do you currently investigate?
I investigate gun violence crimes, so crimes related to firearms and assaults that deal with firearms.
And when did you move into that detail?
I moved into that detail last year. Prior to that, I was working in property crimes.
As a detective?
Yes.
And then prior to property crimes, where were you? What was the detail?
I worked in the homicide detail.
And were you working in the homicide detail in June of 2018?
Yes, I was.
And just overall, all your detective experience, how many years have you been a detective?
About 15 years.
15 of your 24 years you've been a detective?
Yes.
Okay. And could you kind of briefly describe some of your training and experience that took for you to become a police officer and then ultimately to become a detective?
You want me to explain? Is that, I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Your training and experience to become a police officer and then ultimately the additional training and experience it took to become a detective.
Yeah, so actually prior to becoming a police officer with the city of Portland, I was a reserve deputy. So went through Multnomah County's reserve deputy program. Then in 1997, I was hired with Portland Police Bureau, where I went through the state academy with the state of Oregon. From there, I went through advanced academy with the Portland Police Bureau. And then from beyond that, when I became a detective, I've gone through various trainings and training programs in regards to investigations.
Safe to say you receive a lot of continuing education in your career field.
Yes.
I want to go to June 2nd, 2018. Were you also directed to report to the Oregon Culinary Institute that morning?
Yes, I was.
And were you partnered with Detective Merrill at the time?
Yes, I was.
And were you designated as the lead detectives for this case?
Yes.
And do you recall about what time you responded to the scene that morning?
It was, I want to say sometime around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. It was sometime in the morning.
Okay. And you went, once you were directed there, you went straight to the Culinary Institute?
Yes.
And did you meet up with Detective Merrill when you arrived?
Yes, I did.
And did you also participate in this briefing in the mobile command center?
Yes.
And we've already taken some testimony on what that looked like, so I'm not going to refer to it too much, but I may refer back to that briefing at some point.
Okay.
So after the briefing, did you also participate in a walkthrough of the crime scene?
Yes, I did.
And did you also participate in the death notification when Nancy Brophy arrived at the scene?
Yes, I did.
And just to be clear, you're the other voice, other male voice that we hear in that recording?
Yes.
And were you also part of the discussion that after that interview where Detective Broughton and Detective Beniga were to assist Ms. Brophy back to her house to locate a firearm if it's still there and to collect it?
Yes.
And then also, were you with Detective Merrill at the Bellagio's Pizza to review surveillance video?
Yes.
So I'm going to talk just real briefly about kind of the scope of the investigation in general. Did you, even after the interview with Ms. Brophy, after seeing her on the Bellagio's video, did you still follow up other leads with Detective Merrill or independently of Detective Merrill?
Yes.
In some of those leads, did you try to follow up with some of the people that were in the neighborhood that morning that could either be seen on video or you were told about from other people as people that may have been in the area?
Yes.
When you attempted to locate and talk with those potential witnesses, my question is, are you attempting to locate and talk with these people because they're on video and they're now all of a sudden suspects, or are you attempting to locate and talk with these people because they're witnesses?
We're
Witnesses, I'm sorry.
We're attempting to talk to the folks because they're potential witnesses. They're in the area. You know, just because they're on video doesn't necessarily mean that they're a suspect.
Now, of course, are you open to the idea of developing suspect information while reviewing and talking with witnesses, potential witnesses?
Most certainly.
And did you, in fact, identify and talk with quite a few people that had been in the area that morning?
Yes.
Specifically, a name that's been brought up a few times here is Oscar Taylor. Does that name ring a bell to you?
Yes, it does.
And do you recall having contact with Oscar Taylor?
Yes, I did have contact with Oscar Taylor.
And was that a planned contact?
No, it was not.
Okay. Could you describe how you came into contact with Oscar Taylor?
So Anthony Merrill and I were working on another case in the area of 122 and Halsey when, as we were, I can't remember exactly all of the details as far as what we were doing. I think we were doing some canvassing of the neighborhood, and I happened to recognize that Oscar Taylor was riding a bike nearby, and so we decided we should just try to take the opportunity and talk to him.
Okay. And why did you want to talk to him regarding this case?
He had been in the area of the Culinary Institute on June 2nd in the early morning hours.
Okay. So again, somebody you just wanted to speak with who may have information?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have to chase Mr. Oscar Taylor, stop him some way? Or
No.
did you just walk up and talk to him?
Just walked up and talked to him.
Was he cooperative?
Yes, he was.
Now, obviously, we've seen detectives come in here and they're all wearing suits or not a standard police uniform. How were you addressed when you approached and talked to Oscar Taylor?
I was in business casual kind of clothing. I might have even been wearing jeans that day.
Okay. Not wearing a police uniform?
Correct.
And are you driving what I think everybody knows as a police car with the lights and siren, or the light bar and marked Portland Police on the side, or are you driving a detective vehicle?
Just a standard looking vehicle, a detective vehicle.
And nonetheless, you were able to just walk up and talk to Oscar Taylor?
Yes.
And you said he was cooperative, so was he answering your questions?
Yes, he did.
And you talked to him about where he was on the morning of June 2nd?
Yes, he stated he was in the area of the Culinary Institute. He mentioned potluck in the park, and that he did have a run-in with a person there, a guy who had who was either from Boston or had a very Boston accent.
Okay. Did you say you got into a physical fight with anybody, or was this a verbal argument?
It was a verbal argument.
Did he say whether any weapons were drawn or anything like that?
He didn't indicate any weapons were drawn.
Okay. And did he indicate that that verbal argument just ended and both parties went their separate ways?
Yes.
Did he indicate to you anything that was going on with him at the time that he was upset about, or had a grudge with anybody or anything like that?
No. As I remember it, the issue was him sleeping in the doorway or being at the potluck in the park, and that was the issue that he had or was having with that particular person, which I believe is Todd Forday, who he was interacting with. He didn't indicate that there was anybody else that he had a problem with.
We've heard about this potluck in the park quite a few times, I think, and did Oscar Taylor indicate to you that that's why he was in the areas, because of this potluck in the park place?
He was, I think, as he's camped out there in some form or another, and then he was canning. So basically, what that means is he was out collecting bottles and cans from recycling bins and things like that.
Did he tell you something about a bottle of Cabernet and a candle? Do you recall that?
I don't specifically recall that. I'm not sure.
Did he talk to you about collecting things out of garbage bins or something like that? Or you said canning, but does that also involve picking up other items?
It could. I don't remember, getting into the details of what he was, looking for or doing. I just know that that was part of what he was doing that morning there.
Okay. And did he mention something about people hanging out in that area that have guns?
He didn't say anything specifically about a person with guns or anybody with a gun. He stated that there's a lot of crazy people down there, and it was a kind of a blanket statement or opinion based on, what him living on the street in the downtown area.
Do you recall anything specific about him mentioning guns?
I don't remember, so.
And you wrote a report regarding this interaction,
Yes, I did.
and it was not recorded, correct?
That is correct.
Is that because it was sort of an unintentional meeting?
Yeah, it was basically, there's Oscar, let's go talk with him.
Okay. But you did document that interaction?
Yes.
Okay, but you did not mention, I'm sorry, before I get to that, did you review Detective Merrill's notes before you prepared that report?
No, I did not.
So was your report based on your recollection of the conversation you had with Mr. Taylor that morning?
Yes, it was.
And then finally, have you reviewed a lot of this video that's been provided to law enforcement, specifically the Bellagio's video?
Yes.
And in that video, do you actually recognize and notice Oscar Taylor in any of that video?
Yes, I do.
And do you have any recollection of viewing that, specifically the Bellagio video, and seeing Oscar Taylor leave the area around the OCI, or at least heading in the direction away from the OCI, before Dan Brophy's time of arrival?
Yes.
You recall whether that was like seconds before Mr. Brophy's arrival, or are we talking more minutes?
It was minutes. As I recall, it was 7:18 or 7:15, somewhere in that time frame is when he begins walking west and walks past Bellagio's.
And after the time of arrival for Dan, do you see Mr. Taylor return in that area?
No.
I want to shift gears a little bit. Well, I guess it's kind of in line with the Bellagio's video. As you're watching this Bellagio's video, just independently, could you tell us your recollection of what you're seeing in that video that was of note?
Well, the thing that was of note was that on the video it shows a time post of 10:28, and at that 10:28 time frame, which actually is 3 hours ahead, it's actually the time frame that we were seeing was at 7:28, and we see a gray minivan that looks like the gray minivan that belonged to Nancy Brophy.
Okay. And you believe the first time that you viewed that was at this, with the converted time, the 7:28 in the morning?
That was the first time that we noticed it, when I think we were at Bellagio's. I believe that it goes by there another time. I forget exactly. I think earlier. I'm not sure. But that was the kind of that key point of noticing that.
Okay. And you were aware that Detective Broughton and Detective Beniga at that point were actually at Ms. Brophy's home looking for and collecting this firearm?
Yes, that is correct.
And were you aware of a photograph or several photographs that were sent from Detective Beniga to Detective Merrill of Ms. Brophy's actual minivan?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have a chance to view those two and compare it to what you were seeing on the Bellagio's video?
Yes, I did.
What did you conclude, or what were you thinking at that point?
Well, we later looked at the images from the Bellagio's video at the detective division. So this was hours later, and while looking at that, what I noted was there was a scratch with an indentation in the side of the van between the wheel well, the back wheel well on the driver's side, and the gas tank door, fuel door. And with that, I just noted that because that matched the picture. I could see it on the Bellagio's video, and I could see it in the picture on the that was provided by Detective Beniga. And then obviously the wheels and the other features of the van fit.
Okay. So to summarize, was it visually consistent with what you were seeing in these pictures provided with Detective Beniga?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 112. And could you describe what we're seeing in this photograph?
This is a Glock 17 Gen 4 9mm pistol.
Okay. And was this the firearm that was delivered to you from Detectives Broughton and Detective Beniga?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 26. besides what may have been delivered to you in a sort of bag or something, is that the case that was delivered to you from Detectives Beniga and Detective Broughton?
Yes, it was.
And is that the same same thing that we're seeing in this photograph?
Yes.
Just opened, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, could you go ahead and open that case, please? Now, and just to hold up for display, but obviously mindful of where the barrel is pointing, can you just hold that up and display that for the jury to see? Now, I want to talk to you about a couple things. You can go ahead and put that back in there before we move on with this questions. Did that gun come to you with a zip tie in it?
Yes, it did.
Can we go ahead and show Stacy about 3? Is that what zip tie was attached to that firearm when it was delivered to you?
Yes, it was.
Okay. At some point later on, that was cut off, correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, not by you?
No.
Okay. Was that done later for a shell casing comparison?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get into that later with Mr. Samuelson. I'm actually going to have you open that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So although that zip tie was cut, do you see that zip tie still in this case?
Yes, it's still here in the
Can you
case.
hold that up, please? That's the zip tie that we see in the photograph that was cut from this gun and returned to the case?
Yes.
Okay, you go ahead and put that down. And again, I'll have you hold up the firearm, pointing it down, displaying a zip tie. Is that a zip tie that was added by law enforcement?
Yeah, that was added later.
Okay, go ahead and put that back down. So Detective Posey, obviously as a law enforcement officer, you're somewhat familiar with firearms and probably particularly Glocks, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you also are you a firearms expert?
No.
Okay. Over your years just handling firearms as a police officer and a detective, do you nonetheless have quite a bit of experience with firearms, specifically Glocks?
Yes.
When you got this firearm, can we go back to State's Exhibit 112, please? When you got this firearm and you opened the case, is this, for the most part, what you were seeing?
Yes.
Was there anything that you noted that seemed out of place, knowing or having previously been told that this firearm had never been really handled and definitely not shot?
Yeah, the thing that was different was that the slide, which is the top metal part, not the bottom part, so think of the gun in two pieces. The slide and the barrel are what we would consider out of battery. It's positioned somewhat forward from its actually locked position. So and you can also note that there is what's called a slide release or slide lock, and that is partially down, which is part of the locking mechanism that keeps that slide and barrel in place on the handgun for firing purposes.
If you could take that green pointer in front of you and extend it and point to on the screen behind you, one, what you're referring to when you say out of battery, and then two, talk about the slide lock, please.
So the slide lock is right here. That's what I'm talking about, and it's halfway. It is spring loaded and should be all the way up. As you can see right here, that part sits flush with this bottom part of the slide. You can see also back here that the slide is forward of the frame. That
Okay.
makes sense.
And so if that, well, let me have you take a look at the firearm that's in front of you, State's Exhibit 26.
Sure.
Well, first of all, can you tell me, is that properly seated at this point?
No, it's not.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, right now in front of you.
Right now in front of me, it is not properly seated.
Okay. If you were to pull that slide back in order to make it properly seated. Can you do that, please?
Well, it's got a zip tie in it,
Yeah.
so I don't think it's going to be able to
To slide the slide back.
slide it back. Okay.
There you go. Thank you. And then let it slide forward. Thank you.
Mhm.
Now, given that that's fully seated onto the frame, adding the zip tie, does that actually force the slide back off of the frame slightly? Can you look at that, please?
Yeah, it puts a space here between the slide and the barrel. And so that space, that extra space, is pushing the slide back.
Okay.
So it's sitting rested back, but you can see that on here, the slide lock is in the upward position, meaning that the slide will not go forward.
Right. So if you were
When
to,
it's completely, if it was completely, if this zip tie was not on there, it would allow that to come forward.
okay, thank you. And I apologize for maybe the confusing question, but if you were to remove that zip tie right now, we're not going to do that in
Right.
courtroom for safety reasons, but if you were to remove that zip tie, would that slide and, I'm sorry, the slide portion push forward and be completely flush with the back of the gun?
Yes.
So when we see this photograph at State's Exhibit 112, and you're saying it's actually slightly forward on the frame, given that it has a zip tie in it, would you expect it to be actually slightly off the rear of the frame as you see the gun in front of you?
Yes.
And Detective, is there, besides the magazines, is there a device in that kit that assists the user with loading the magazines?
Yes.
Could you pick up that piece and display it to the jury, please?
That's this piece right here.
What is that called?
It's a magazine loader.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Have you ever referred to it as a speed loader?
Not necessarily.
Okay, just a regular loader.
It just is, yeah, it's an assistance in loading the magazines.
Okay. In particular, does that provide assistance as you fill a magazine? Does it get more difficult to push the bullets down?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So when we're getting to bullets 15, 16, 17, if that's what the magazine holds, is it getting pretty hard to load at that point?
Yeah, it gets stiff.
Okay. And that little device, that loader assist, would that help specifically with those last few rounds?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Now, just in your own training and experience, let's say the first 5 or 6 rounds, are those very difficult to load?
No.
Pretty easy to do, just thumb?
Generally, yeah.
But if one were not inclined to actually handle the bullets themselves, the whole cartridge, could one use that loader to even assist with those first few that might be easy?
Yes.
And that's in this kit. This wasn't something that was added later or anything. This is one that came with that kit.
Yeah, my understanding is that they come with all Glock kits.
All right, I'm gonna pause you there, Mr. Overstreet. Let's take our morning recess. Let's plan to be back on the record at 10 after 11. I do want to talk to the attorneys for just a minute after the jury steps out so we can go off the record. be seated. And Mr. Overstreet, when you're ready, well, actually, you're still on the record? Okay, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Posey, I think we're finished speaking about the gun. At this point, Your Honor, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit 26, the Glock 17 9mm handgun.
No objection.
It will be admitted, just as a reminder, let's talk later about how that might be presented to the jury, but it's admitted.
Of course. Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. So Detective Posey, one last thing I wanted to cover, not with the actual firearm itself, but I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 79. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm going to have you look at both sides of it. You recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It's the purchase receipt for the Glock 17 from the gun show.
And what is the total amount?
$509.
And you've seen that document before?
Yes.
Did it come to you with the Glock 17 that we were just previously speaking about?
Yes.
It was either in the bag or in the case with the gun or something?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked about the gun being out of battery. I think so. At some point in the course of the investigation, did you start to think whether or not, or form an opinion about whether or not you thought that this firearm was actually used, this complete firearm was actually used in the homicide?
I believe that it may have been used in the situation. Yes.
Okay. And if not the whole firearm, at least part of it?
Correct.
After you had learned that at least the slide and barrel portion of this gun that we've been talking about was not matching the shell casings from the crime scene, and after then learning that Ms. Brophy had actually purchased a Glock 17 slide and barrel from eBay, what were you thinking at that point?
My belief or understanding at that point was that essentially the slide and barrel that was purchased on eBay, and that was a complete slide barrel and spring assembly, was used to put on the frame of this Glock 17 in order to conduct the homicide.
This question calls for speculation, and the answer is speculation.
Can I have the jury step out for just 1 minute?
The jury, I will be put under.
Right, the objection is to speculation. What is the state's response?
Well, I think it requires almost the further line of questioning. What we're getting at is what the detective was thinking at the time as possibilities and how that informed how he proceeded with the investigation.
Why don't you ask a few more follow-up questions so I can see where this is leading?
Sure. So Detective Posey, I was asking you, as you gathered more knowledge and information throughout the course of the investigation, you learned at some point that this complete firearm, was, at least the slide and barrel portion, was not used in the murder. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you later on learned that Ms. Brophy had purchased a Glock 17 slide and barrel from eBay.
Yes.
Okay. And were you of the opinion, or did you just know for a fact that that slide and barrel purchased from eBay would in fact fit the lower frame of the gun that we've been speaking of.
Yes.
And so, and this is where I'm, Judge, speaking of the next steps in the investigation, at some point, did you then take a firearm or go to J&B Firearms, where this gun was purchased from, and ask them to make a video where demonstrating how to swap out a slide and barrel?
Yes.
And why did you do that?
I did that because based on the information I saw with the handgun in its state when we received it, with the slide and barrel out of battery, that slide and barrel had been removed and another slide and barrel was placed on that frame. And I believe that that's how the homicide was conducted.
And then after the homicide would have been conducted, I know you said that was your belief that that's what was done. Would you feel comfortable phrasing it as that was just a possibility that you were considering at the time?
It was the possibility that based on the information I had at that point.
Okay. And then, are you of the opinion then that the slide and barrel, the original slide and barrel, were returned to the firearm?
Yes.
So
All right, so here's what I'm going to allow and what I'm not going to allow. That was about 5 or 6 questions, and I think it's fine to go through with the officer what he wound up doing, the questions about learning that there was this other slide bought on eBay, going and having a video made, what it demonstrated. But there are some speculative conclusions contained in some of the answers that I'm going to sustain the defense objection to. For example, I was of the opinion that's how the homicide was conducted. And I think there was something he said after that as well. So I'll allow you to go through the steps of what the officer did, staying away from what his particular opinion is. And I know, defense, that may not satisfy your objection, so you can make more of a record if you'd like, but that's what I plan to do.
I think I understand the court's ruling to be he can describe what he did and the steps that he took after he learned different pieces of evidence, but he's not going to be able to offer his opinion that this slide was swapped or that it was the swap slide that accomplished the murder.
Correct. That's correct, and that's an argument that you can make later, but I'm going to limit what he testifies to as the actual steps he took.
And I think one of my questions, Your Honor, during that offer there was if Detective Posey was comfortable with saying that in his mind he was thinking it was a possibility that this slide could have been swapped out. Is that okay, or are you thinking that is what?
I would rather just have him testify as to what he did. You can make the argument later as to why that was done or what it means, but I want to limit it to what he actually did.
Okay, understood.
All right.
Understood.
So with that, let's call the jury back in.
Okay, would you like to leave the record on?
No, sorry.
Okay, we will go off record and leave the weapons.
Have a seat. I did sustain the objection, so Mr. Overstreet, if you can reword the question or ask a different question.
Yes, absolutely, Your Honor. Thank you. So Detective Posey, I think I had asked you a couple of base questions before we got into that next line of questioning. So I just want to make sure that we did do that. That is, you at some point in this investigation became aware that at least the slide and barrel with the gun that we've been talking about, the one purchased from the gun show, that slide and barrel was not used in the homicide. You learned that?
Correct.
And did you later learn that Ms. Brophy had purchased a Glock 17 9mm slide and barrel from eBay?
Yes.
Okay. With that information, did you contact the owners or people who worked at J&B Firearm Sales?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And I know we just looked at that receipt, but for the jury's sake, because they haven't seen it yet, is J&B Firearm Sales the company that sold Ms. Brophy the gun at the gun show?
Yes.
And so at some point, did you contact them in order to do a filmed demonstration?
Yes.
Okay. And what were you asking them to demonstrate?
I was just asking them to demonstrate taking a slide and barrel with the zip tie off of a gun and then replacing it with another slide and barrel from another gun.
And I want to make sure we're not confusing some of the words that you said there. You said as a slide and barrel, I think you said without a zip tie. I want to make sure we're using our terminology correctly. You're saying swap out a slide and barrel that actually had a zip tie intact?
Yes.
Okay, so not removing the zip tie.
Correct, yeah.
You had them demonstrate removing a complete slide and barrel that is zip tied off of the gun, and placing another zip tied slide and barrel onto the gun?
Actually replacing it with another slide and barrel that did not have a zip tie on it.
I see.
So taking a Glock 17, basically like J&B puts on their guns with the zip tie, taking that slide and barrel off and then replacing it with another slide and barrel from a different gun, but still a Glock 17 Gen 4, to be able to see if it can be done.
Okay. And then further on in the video, was that to remove that unzip tied slide and barrel and then replace it with the original zip tied slide and barrel?
Yes.
Okay. And you worked with them to create this video?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll discuss that more with the individual who actually made the video, but that was something that you did as part of this investigation?
Yes.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. We talked about June 2nd a little bit. So I want to talk to you about 4 days after the murder. Did you receive a call from Nancy Brophy and or return a call to Nancy Brophy?
Yes.
We're going to play a little bit of a recording. I want you to tell me whether that's a call you received or a call you had made to Ms. Brophy on June 6th.
On June 6th.
This should be marked as State's Exhibit 109, which I believe has been pre-admitted. Look around some audio.
109 has been.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Lou, are we having audio issues on?
I have the laptop volume up on my end.
Volume push on computers.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Oh,
move it up on
yeah.
your computer.
It's in someplace. How bizarre.
Time. Okay, so we're gonna do this. Darren.
Yep.
Scott Posey,
It's been
at
It's at the end.
Portland, Oregon.
Well, I think you've got mine, Oregon. Now the Portland, not mine,
we can go.
not.
I know we jumped a little bit ahead, but I know there's some ringing and stuff in there. So does that sound like a clip from the audio that you recorded of this phone call?
Yes.
We're going to go ahead and go back to the beginning. And was this a call that you were making to Mrs. Brophy in response to her leaving a message for you?
Yes.
I am struggling to, and I don't know why I'm.
Go ahead and just go back.
This is Nancy. Can I help you?
Hi, Nancy. It's Detective Posey.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
I'll see you guys later. Okay, I am struggling to, and I don't know why I'm struggling. Do we have another email I can use?
Well, I think you've got mine not correct somehow.
Oh, okay.
It's my whole name, so it's DARREN dot.
And no dots, no dashes,
Yeah.
no underscores.
Yeah, so it's Darren, and then a dot, then Posey, Posey, at Portland, Oregon. And now the Portland, Oregon is all one word.
Okay, hang on a second. We're gonna make this where I can.
It's on my business card if you still happen to have that. Hello?
Oh, hang on. Okay, I'm looking at your business card, and the one that's on there is dposey@portlandpolice.org.
Oh, that's weird. That must have been an old card I had sitting someplace. How bizarre.
Oh, I do that all the time. Okay, so we're going to do this. Darren.
Yep.
Dot Posey.
Yep.
At Portland, Oregon.
.gov.
Okay, and it's Oregon spelled out or OR?
Yeah, Oregon spelled out.
Okay. .gov. Okay. So that's question one. Now.
Okay.
I don't want to do, but this may give you a laugh this afternoon. I don't want to be the stupid question of the day, but I think I need to be the stupid question of the day. So my insurance company said, well, just have the detective write a letter that you're no longer a suspect. And I said, man, I just don't know that he's there. And I'm not sure that he looks at that way. But if you do, I get you to write the letter. My sister, when I told her this as a lawyer, laughed so hard she fell out of the chair. So.
Why? Why would you need that?
Because they don't want to pay if it turns out that I secretly went down to the school and shot my husband because I thought, hey, going into old age without Dan after 25 years, it's really what I'm looking for, you know?
Okay. Well, we never would do something like that. I
really didn't think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something that we never do something like that. That's never been done. I've never heard of that being done.
I was shocked when he told me this. And the other thing he says, well, I said, so what happens if, in fact, based upon your, and this is such a stupid little policy. I can't believe they're making me jump through the hoops like this. This is only $40,000. And as my sister said, you know, usually when they do that, it's for millions. And I said, yeah, we weren't insured for millions. But the other thing is, I said, what happens if, in fact, this case never gets resolved? And they said, well, that has to go to up to the supervisors to be evaluated. And I'm thinking, great. So let me ask you my next question, which I know you're going to give me a vague answer, so I don't know why I'm asking. But have you got enough things that you really think you know, or you think you've got the potential to solve it at this point? When I saw you on Saturday, I didn't think you had that.
We are looking at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I told you before, is that there's a lot of things to go through and review, because given the nature of what took place and how it took place, you know, there's just a lot of people to talk to, and a lot of you know, just a lot of information to process. Because you know, when we have something like this take place, we cast a wide net for information, right? And so it takes time processing some of that stuff. So that's kind of what's going on with that. And that's why and I apologize, you know, I meant to get back to you sooner, but there's just a large amount of things still coming in, you know, that I haven't even had a chance to look at yet. just because there's just been, it's just a lot of things, right? So we're working on that. Both my partner and I are we've been working nonstop, just going through
And
all
I'm
of the
really
different things.
not
So
trying to hound you. Real frankly, I want you to take as long as it takes because I want us to find this person.
Yeah.
But I'm not hounding you. But I've also got my family saying, well, what do you know? What do you know? What do you know? And then somebody pops up and says, oh, this and that. And I'm thinking, well, we don't know this and that, but that doesn't matter.
Right.
Everybody has an opinion.
Right.
But when this woman asked for this today, I thought, I cannot even imagine in my wildest dreams she doing that. But I thought, it's worth a shot. I'll ask.
Okay. Actually, I did have a couple of questions for you about a couple of things. The first thing was family members, Daniel's family members that live here in the area.
And that would be Jack and Karen, his parents.
So Jack and who?
Karen, his wife, Karen.
Oh, Karen. Okay.
And they live in Garden Home. They live at 7245 Southwest. And it could be Portland or Tigard, depending on, but it gets delivered to both. And 9722. And do you want their phone number?
Sure. And their last name's Brophy then?
Yes.
Okay.
Hang on just a second. I'll give you their phone number.
Okay, thank you.
Speed dial is not my friend. Oh. If I hit favorites, it'll call them. Let me go to a different place. Okay, here it is.
Does he have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, but they don't live here.
But
So if you want to talk to any of them or anything like that, they're all coming in tomorrow, and they'll be here till Sunday. And the memorial service is going to be at the school from 4 to 6.
On Sunday?
On Friday.
Friday. Okay.
Yeah. So according to every TV show I've ever watched, the detectives sneak in and watch for somebody looking guilty. I'm just helping you out with tips.
Okay.
So
4 to 6 on Friday is the memorial. Okay.
And then Nathaniel is his son, and he lives here. And Nathaniel's last name is Stillwater, and his wife is Kate.
Right.
And
I think I have their info.
Okay, good.
Now you guys didn't end up having kids together, is that correct?
We did not.
Okay.
We didn't get married till I was 41.
Okay. And do you have any kids from previous relationship?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then
basically Nathaniel is our sole heir regardless of which parents survived.
I gotcha.
I mean, I think of Nathaniel as my son as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, so we were reviewing some of the items in Daniel's wallet.
Okay.
And we found some what looks like medical ID cards.
For Kaiser?
No, for some other people.
ID cards for other people.
Yeah. So do
Weird.
you? And I'm just going to put out a couple of names to see if they're people that or he that he would know. A Hugh. I think it's Ngo. It's an Asian name. NGO.
No.
How about a Darla Shaw?
No.
Okay.
Oh man, please don't tell me he had a secret life.
I don't think so, but there could be a perfectly good explanation for why they're there, but I just
well, we were were talking about that at dinner the other night, and I said, you know, of course, I'm a TV watcher, as you could tell. I said, you know, what if he turns out to have had a secret life? And they said, you knew where he was all the time, and that is absolutely the truth. You know, he snored at night, and people would complain about their husband snoring, and I said, hey, I know where he is every night. You know,
Right.
I didn't feel that way about it.
Okay. I didn't know if that was some, there was some
It's
kind
not
of thing.
next time.
I didn't know if it was something where, he was, helping somebody out or some kind of thing, with picking up medication for somebody or something for some reason or.
No.
Okay.
I don't, the fact I don't know those names is really strange.
Okay.
I mean, I really felt we had a close relationship.
And like I said, it was in his wallet, so
Sure.
I just was just curious about that. So, okay.
And the other thing I thought about, because you'd asked me what was in his wallet, was there was probably another card in addition that was Nordstrom's card. But I think I hit all the cards with the Nordstrom's card.
Okay.
You know, and medical, he might have had something from Willamette Dental, and he might have had something from Kaiser, but he shouldn't have had anything else.
Oh, and I think it's, is there any particular reason why he would take pictures of people's like ID cards for like medical stuff, or like would there be something that he would do for?
Are you looking on his phone?
We did. I mean,
Okay.
we did do that. Yeah.
Okay, that's me. Okay, once you said that, I got it. Yes, I sell Medicare.
Oh.
Those are Medicare cards. So sometimes when I go out and see somebody, and it's on a weird time,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, you know, I'm dual eligible, which means they're eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
I have to call and find out all the information. So I take pictures of their cards. So when they say, and what was their date, and what was this, and what, that's why those pictures are on there.
Oh.
From me. So, and
They're from you.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
For you, 98% of those pictures were taken by me.
Oh, okay. Do you use his phone, or is it?
No, our phones are interlocked because they're on the same
same account. Okay.
So I have his numbers. He has my numbers.
Gotcha.
So you may really want to check with me as you go along on that, because I can tell you. But yeah, that is why those are on there.
Okay.
So it's because of the fact that you know, it's so much easier for me to just take a picture, so I'm not taking their card with me.
Okay.
And you know, most of the people I talk to are totally lost with Medicare.
Yeah. No, it's complicated. My dad is on that, so yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all I needed to know then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I'm glad we straightened out.
Yeah, cleared that all up. Cool.
Yeah, that would have been a really weird. Why would you have all this information?
Yeah, and it was my mistake. It wasn't in his wallet. For some reason, my partner said it's on his phone. It was on his phone.
Shaw could have been a client of mine, and both of those names could have been clients of mine. I just wasn't thinking of them in terms of connected with him.
Okay.
And I see hundreds of people.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't even remember who, and people call me all the time and say, you know, I'm the one with the dog, and like that narrows it down. And so I'm, you know, I'm better with faces than I am with names.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your information, and really take your time. Do not let me get neurotic on you. Just slap me around and I'll go away.
No, it's fine. We're just, like I said, we're just, we got to work through things, so it does take time sometimes. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Detective, that phone call took place 4 days after the homicide?
Yes.
And have you ever been asked that question before, providing a letter saying that somebody is no longer a suspect?
No.
Have you ever heard of that before?
At that point, I had not heard of that.
Okay. Since then, maybe have you heard something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Not something you're aware that you or your department would actually provide to somebody 4 days after a homicide?
No. I would probably be some kind of special circumstance that would have to go up the chain of command.
Maybe not an active homicide investigation?
No.
And in the phone call, all we heard was Ms. Brophy referred to a little $40,000 policy.
Yes.
Is that what you remember from that phone
Yes.
call as well?
Mhm.
Throughout the course of your investigation, did you in fact find several policies valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yes.
When you, throughout this investigation, did you help prepare affidavits in support of a application for a search warrant?
Yes.
And did you do that on numerous life insurance policies?
Yes.
And did you receive returns from the various life insurance companies with the policy information?
Detective Merrill did, yes.
Have you yourself seen some of those policies?
I have seen them. I didn't. I don't remember seeing all of the returns.
Sure. But you've seen that some of these
Yes.
policies were returned?
Yes.
Okay. And have you been made aware that Ms. Brophy primarily was making claims on those policies on the same day of this phone call?
I've been made aware of that, yes.
But yet she only disclosed to you this $40,000 policy.
That is correct.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to analyze insurance policies. I know that's a difficult thing to do. Throughout the course of the investigation, after you received all these policies, did you actually contact somebody named Lori Persons? Or were you in contact, you and Detective Merrill, in contact with somebody named Lori Persons at an organization called NCIB?
Yes.
And was it your impression that Lori Persons was somebody who could help analyze those insurance documents?
Yes, that was my understanding.
And did you provide, or did you and Detective Merrill provide the insurance documents to this person?
Yes.
And did she help analyze and create some documentation to help better have the user have a better visual about what these policies were and the amounts and things like that?
Yes.
At some point over the course of this investigation, did Ms. Persons pass away?
Yes.
Given that she had passed away, was there an attempt made to locate somebody within the same organization that could take over for her and redo the analysis?
Yes.
Leading up to a few months ago, did that turn out that person was not actually able to help out?
That is correct.
Was a new effort made to identify somebody in the insurance industry that could help analyze these various life insurance policies?
Yes.
Okay. And was that done just in the last several months?
Yes.
And is the name of that person that ultimately was able to help out named Steve Santos?
Yes.
And are you under the impression that those same policies that had previously been sent to Ms. Persons had also been provided to Mr. Santos for
Yes.
review? Now, after you got off the phone with Ms. Brophy, well, I guess I should say, was one of the purposes of the call, sounded like you guys were working out some email issues, making sure that she actually had the right email for you.
Correct, yeah.
What was the purpose of her having your email address?
It was so that she could send me some of Dan's work schedule.
Okay. Now, did she send you Dan Brophy's actual work schedule, say like a document provided by the school, or was it based on her knowledge and belief of what his schedule was?
What I received was what I think she had put together, which was just what she knew his schedule to be at that given time.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 97. Take a look at that and tell us what that is.
Yes, this is the email message sent to me by Nancy.
That day on June 6th?
Correct.
Okay. It seems to be a fairly brief email. Could you just read that, please?
Yes, so at the top is my name, Posey Darren, Nancy Brophy at nancybrophy@gmail.com, Wednesday, June 6, 2018 at 6:26 p.m. Dan's schedule, one more time. OCI weekend classes, Saturday and Sunday, June 9th, 10th, 16th, and 17th. Back to Monday through Friday on June 15th. And then Avamere Rehab, Monday at noon till 7-ish, Thursday, Friday, 8/9/10/15/21/22/28/ and 20, excuse me, 2 p.m. to 7-ish. Special date Tuesdays the 12th mornings, sent from mail for Windows 10.
Is that the entirety of the email that Ms. Brophy had sent you that day?
Yes.
You haven't removed anything from this or anything like that?
No.
Or added to it?
No.
Your Honor, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit 97.
No objection.
All right, 97 will be admitted.
I just want to be clear, you rattled off a bunch of numbers there with slashes in between them. Was it your impression that those were actual dates?
Yeah, I think those were the days of that, because they weren't off. I mean, they were just different days that he would be working.
Understood. I just have a couple clarifying questions, and then I think we'll be done here. In the recording, Ms. Brophy said something about, do you have enough to solve this case or something? I don't believe you quite answered, but she said, because when I saw you on Saturday, you didn't have enough to solve it or something, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. You're having this conversation 4 days after the homicide. Were you under the understanding that the Saturday she's referring to is the day of the homicide?
Yes.
And just so there's no confusion, these names about these cards, Hugh No and Darla Shaw, you didn't actually have cards from Dan Brophy's wallet, correct?
Correct.
These turned out to be photographs that were associated with his cell phone.
Yes.
Okay. And was that clarified with Ms. Brophy? It sounds like you guys discussed that, and that these were actually photographs that she was using as part of her Medicare sales business.
Correct.
Okay. So there was no medical cards belonging to other people within Dan Brophy's wallet?
No, there was not.
Only his own medical cards?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I don't have any further questions.
All right, we're at a good breaking point for lunch. Why don't we take our lunch break and plan to be back on the record at 1:30.
Okay, we will go off record and I will go ahead and mute for WebEx. All rise.